All right, hello everybody. Welcome to our Subspace Developer Sync, and welcome back all Subspacers that have been traveling and enjoying their week last week in Costa Rica. And most everybody traveled back. I think at least one maybe decided they hadn't had enough of Costa Rica yet and stayed. So, all right, I guess we'll just go ahead and get started. So, overview from last week, I guess the last couple of weeks. Not a whole lot. I still have some open questions. I discussed a bit with Nazar this morning. Maybe we'll be able to get some more cleared up regarding Gemini 3C. Farming's been slow and difficult to join. I'm having some problems with the CLI from the main branch, so I'll be sharing some logs of that after the call today. Last week, my main focus was adjusting to life with a new baby in the house, so even less sleep than normal. And then also trying to keep up with the folks in Costa Rica with all the great things that were happening there. Also been working on the project board for the engineering handbook. Some of you may have noticed you've been getting tagged in that. I'll be sharing more or communicating more about that as the week goes on and kind of what the expectations are. So that'll be my primary goal this week, in addition to Gemini 3 coordination. So kind of figuring out what the next steps are and when we can start moving forward with ambassadors in the greater community. So, and I guess it's become a staple now of this call since I've already done it twice. So I'm going to add a third week in a row with a joke. I had a hard time finding one that was directly related to blockchain, although this is, I think, pretty pertinent to it as well. So what is the most used language in programming?
Swears.
Daria is too good at these. Profanity. So, all right, with that, we'll move on. Nazar, how's it going?
Hey guys, I think I'll cover updates for me and Shamil again, since he is really tired after a few days of travel. So the last week was obviously not very busy. Week before that, I was primarily trying to see what we have with Gemini 3C in terms of reliability, performance, how it behaves. There were a bunch of different things that had to be fixed. So I was mostly working on those. And I also outlined some first steps in terms of the implementation for the Gemini, for the consensus version 2.3. There was no implementation work happening yet, but we have a few things that can be done in parallel and not necessarily by me. So hopefully someone from the team will be working on those. My goal for this week primarily will be to work on the back pressure acknowledgement for the Academia in peer-to-peer, because that is blocking some of the things on the implementation side in terms of reliability. We're just getting overwhelmed by messages that are not processed in time, and we need to fix that fundamentally. There are some pointers from folks from Protocol Labs on peer-to-peer team, so I'll try to research what can be done and what are the results, and hopefully join the Rust community call tomorrow to share my findings and discuss further. On Shamil's side, he was working on block import from DSN. Initial version is on the main branch. However, there were no verification for what we are pulling. So he added the persistence for the root blocks so we can retrieve them later, and also add a request response protocol so we can actually query that. The next step will be to figure out the quorum between different nodes that the node is connected to figure out what is the canonical chain, then download all of the root blocks from there. And from all of the root blocks, we can verify any piece on the history very easily. So we can be certain that the blocks we are importing are actually part of the canonical chain. So that's something he'll be working on next. And with that, I think, yeah, there is like a non-critical upcoming blocker for the consensus. We still need to figure out some of the cryptographic primitive stuff with Daria, but she's on it. And I think by the time we get to implement that, hopefully it will be resolved.
Great. Rahul.
Yeah, so the block relay protocol proposal is under review. I got several comments from the team, mostly Nazar and Jeremiah and others. So Nazar also started a thread with Substrate folks to see if we how much changes we can make. Like should it be done like downstream or upstream kind of thing. So that thread is just in progress right now. So based on that, hopefully in a day or two, we'll have better visibility about the final design, which way to go. And meanwhile, I'm starting to work on a benchmark so that we can track how the progress we are making, or the worst case, we don't cause any regression with the changes that we're making. So basically, I'll start with the baseline with what we have right now. And as we make changes, we will also measure against the same kind of workload, same setup to see how it compares with the baseline. This will catch any, this will also help us like catch any bottlenecks and zero in on any particular areas that we need to improve on as we make the changes. So that is mostly it from me.
Great. Lu Chang, how are things coming on your side?
Yeah, last week was a light week, so I was mainly working on an issue like about the block import notification on the executor. So the problem is that the current block import notification is fired like before the completion of the block import, which is problematic on the executor side because when we receive these notifications, some operations can be unusable. So I have created a Substrate PR to add a new block import in notification, which will be fired for every imported block, no matter what the sync state is. The current one, from the provided by the Substrate, only fired on you fully synced or there's a rework. So also spent some time reviewing Link's work. Yeah, he had some progress on a few issues. For this week, I'll continue the work of a more efficient proof of election verification, and maybe look into other a few new issues. Yeah, that's pretty much on my side. Yeah.
Cool. And Ning, how are things coming with you?
Last week, I mostly working on the duplicate bundle probe the PR. I feel addressed a few comments from Lucien. And besides that, I also had the fundamental issue about the bundle signature, which is related to the spamming bundle issue that I created 2 weeks ago. And I had dropped a PR today to fix this issue. And for next week, I will working on other executor issue that I haven't do yet, but mentioned 2 weeks ago on the day thing. And also I will focus on the efficiency weight calculation. Yeah.
Great. Ved.
Hey, everyone. Last week, Jeremiah and I also had a chance to sync on the client side with message verification between domains. It was good feedback. We already have issues created for those. This week, it's mostly focusing on that and also updating the current spec so that it's much more clear. Yeah, that's pretty much the main focus.
Parth, how are integrations coming?
Yeah, so from my end, I have started writing unit test as well as integration test for the refactoring I have done. This is just to make sure that the piece of code that I written is actually working. Last week, I spent some time to gather the data from mainnet as well as GoRelief testnet to uh, verify that my code is working properly. Uh, uh, this week's primary goal would be to completely integrate that fixture, complete the unit test as well as integration test, and then open a PR into Subspace monorepo. Afterwards, I will be start working on the runtime of the domain. I have uh, something in my local, but yeah, I will need to talk to Ved in order to make sure that I'm going on right path on this one.
And do we know how we're going to integrate it into the monorepo? We talked with Nazar and figured that out.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I think Ved has created the payments domain before, so I will have a call with him to see how we can structure this possible.
Okay. So it'll just be like another domain, I guess. So
Yeah.
all right, Stefano on product.
Well, most of the team was busy at the offsite. So I think the main news is that we are reviewing the Explorer, mostly on the user experience side. And the most important thing that I would like to look into is the execution of smart contracts and how this can be, analyzed from the current Explorer. So this is mostly looking forward. Looking backward, there were some work done by the CLI and SDK team, but we still they're offline today, so I don't have any feedback to share. Mostly I'm blocking for Gemini 3.
Natasha.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. From my side, before the offsite, I worked on some issues that Search created on the Block Explorer. And this week, I'm going to be focused on working on some UI UX issues that Alex created after giving a review to the current implementation, and also continue learning a little bit more on Subspace, so for new features I can work on the backend as well.
Great. The rest of the product team is offline traveling or dead tired from traveling. So we'll move on to research. Daria.
Research slept until lunch today. So I woke up, I sent my daughter to daycare, and then I put myself to sleep again. So there was not much of research done today. But before the offsite, finished the presentation, delivered it, finished the write-up on plain English. About the consensus, they will need to be cleaned up, updated, and put into more thought flow and published at some point, but not right now, when I have a little more bandwidth. For this week, our primary goal is to resolve the blockers for consensus v2 implementation, which are erasure coding during plotting, for which I have drafted a potential solution, but I need confirmation or rejection from Chen, whether that is a viable solution or not. And if it is viable, I will try to prototype it and see if that actually works. And the second, so this is like a blocker without which consensus implementation cannot work. The second blocker which we could circumvent is the erasure coding of commitments for archiving. We need to figure out whether that is something that is supported, or we can make supported in CKZG, or we will need to do a separate implementation. And I will try to resolve most of it on paper this week, but then we'll see how that actually goes.
Daria, can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you prioritize that over anything related to a write-up, since
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
all
Yeah,
right.
the
And-
write-up going to be done after I have some time after
Okay.
everything is, yeah.
And is there some way that we can, like, is that like a full blocker on doing anything with consensus v2.3? Do we have to have like the perfect solution right now? Can we have like, I don't know, something that we can upgrade?
So Nazar has drafted some tasks that could be started right away. Archiving, so we could circumvent this issue of rigid coding commitments by just committing to every piece for like first implementation. So they're just archiving archives. And then if, again, that's difficult to resolve, but I don't think it's difficult to resolve. They need to go back to the things that we were doing with semi-avid PR and uncover them. And that's, again, a second priority because the first priority is plotting. And I don't think plotting can be done any other way, the way we envision it. But I'm pretty sure, like Nazar, Rahul could start with archiving implementation first. And hopefully I will be done by then, me and Chen. I mostly need feedback from Chen at this point. I've pinged him, but then again, it will depends if he thinks that my solution is a reasonable one, or we need to think of another one.
All right.
Thanks, Jerry.
Justin.
Yeah, so last week, we had, before we left for the offsite, we had another meeting with Jeremiah, continuing to finalize some of our Q1 strategic plans for the community and ecosystem team. Moving into the offsite, obviously I had a chance to get to know all of you better, and also got some practice writing a product brief during our hackathon, which I thought was very valuable. For my primary goal this week, I'm going to be finalizing my Q1 strategic plan and starting the implementation of that plan. And that'll be covering, on my end at least, for Discord engagement and our localization efforts. And the ecosystem team will also be focusing on various other sides of that as well, in regards to improving our forum and some of the other efforts that they've been focusing on. No current blockers on my end at this time. Other than that, yeah, that's it for me.
Cool. That's through everybody, kind of smaller group this week. Anything before we sign off? Going once, twice. All right. Well, we'll see everybody back next week.